Great defeaters, new and old, welcome back, as always, to another exciting, possibly a little bit interesting episode of The Breakdown with your hosts, BaseDaKID, Tony, Pugilist Boy. We are the children of the game. So, Tony, how was your week, your extended weekend, Friday onwards? Talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty quiet in all honesty. Nothing to really write home about. Bit of football, bit of boxing, bit of American football. So yeah, it was pleasurable. Nice into the summer, I guess, because we had some nice sunny days. And it looks like that's about it for us kids.
Yeah, does look like that. But you know what? There's a lot of people in this country that can't handle the sun or heat. So, maybe they'll be happy now. Who knows? Right. So, let's see who we got in the chat real quick. So, big up to Deacon. Looks like he was number one today. Bless up, bro. Philip Ansel, Muller, a stalwart every time. Big ups to you. And Untraceable is also in the building. They probably didn't expect us to be on so close to eight. I mean, close to nine, I should say, because it doesn't like the rest of the chats here. But all good. Now it's a very weird episode because it's probably one of the few that we've had where there was no quote unquote standout fight. Given that it was, Mexican Independence weekend, you would think that they would that they would have had some form of blockbuster, but maybe everyone thought Canelo was going to take it, and then as soon as he didn't, that was just like a bit of an issue. Oh, hold on, Untraceable says I sound funny. If
There's
you
a
can,
little
if you
crackle.
can,
There's a little crackle in the voice on the mic.
it might be the headset because it's close to my hoodie. Let me know if it sounds better now to the people. What does it sound like to you?
Speak again.
Mic check 1 2.
Yeah, there's still that little crack just
All right, let
occurring.
me just switch my I'll switch to other audio. Uh, all right, does that sound better,
Still a
or is
little
it the
crack.
same?
No, that's better. I think that was better.
Yeah. All right, cool. Untraceable. Philip answer says it's fine. Yeah, it's a different set of headphones I'm using. But if it gets bad, people just put in the chat and I'll take them out. It's fine. Yeah, so I was saying, as we haven't had necessarily an eventful weekend. There's no real sort of big fight and then all the other fights then big fights. So we can kind of take this in whatever direction you want. So Tony, go for it. Where do you want to start? And then I'll follow on this one.
Okay. Well, let's start with a kind of biggie on one of the Mexican cards, which was William Zepeda. An all-action
Zepeda versus
four-round
Masito
affair.
Hester.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll start that.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so it was an all-action affair. I got a little bit of footage, so I kind of guess that there's a lot of stuff that happened this weekend that some of the defeaters may not have seen. So we're kind of gonna give you a little bit of or some of the stuff that we've seen this weekend. Some of it I've seen, some of it Base has seen. But essentially, there's a few fights out there that if you can get to see, we may be just giving you an update on some fighters that you may have heard of and have boxed this weekend, and effectively update you on where they sit in the rankings. But Williams Zepeda against Marcito Gesta.
Hester.
El,
It's
El
I know it's a
Camarón
G. I know it's a G, but it's a H. You say the H.
Gesta.
Yeah.
Gesta. Gracias, mis amigos.
De nada.
So yeah, this was a very entertaining fight in that The two guys came in. They looked in great shape for the weigh-in. I've seen both guys before, but you could kind of tell that there was a bit of pressure on William Zepeda in his hometown on Mexican Independence Day. He just seemed to have this laser focus in this fight. But Mercito Gesta was true to his form in that, you know, he came to fight. He looked like he was all about it. He came in great shape. But we know from the past that William Zepeda is a volume puncher. And it was a quick graphic there that showed after 3 rounds, he outlanded Mercito by about 3.5 to 1 in terms of punch rate. And as you can see, he's wailing away at Mercito on the ropes and eventually gets the stoppage. You know, not a great deal of content available by way of fight action and pictures, but you know, I think the highlight here is that you see the huge output of both body and head punches landed by Zepeda in the was it fifth round? Six rounds. So you know, in that short period of the fight, he was able to absolutely pile on the pressure, and there were points in the sort of 4th and 5th round where he was wailing away, and you're thinking, is he gonna run out of gas? But he didn't. He kept his composure. He took his time. He stepped on the gas, then he stepped off, then he stepped on it. And for the fighters who I'm training, that's one of the things that I'm always talking to them about, is being able to step on the gas when an opponent thinks that you're about to gas. And just as you think, I stepped off and that means I now need a rest. No, apply the pressure straight back on again, because that's when they're at their weakest, because they now can open up thinking that you've run out of gas and you can go in and do good work, because they may slightly have thought, well, I can open up now because my opponent has stepped off the gas. And it was with that kind of intent and with that kind of attribute that Zepeda had, by way of a very good engine and the ability to throw continually good hard combinations, 5-6 punch combinations in every one, getting Hester up against the ropes and then offloading his combinations that gave Hester. And Zepeda is a heavy-handed fighter. He was able to hurt Hester with good hard shots in his combinations, but credit to Hester, he was able to ride some of those punches and withstand those barrages and come back himself with some very effective work, which it just wasn't enough. He just didn't have sufficient power to be able to keep Zepeda off him for any sustained period of time. And eventually, as we saw, he wilted to the stronger, faster, more powerful Zepeda. And that's how the fight went.
Okay. First thing, it wasn't in William Zepeda's hometown. It was in Cali. It was in California. So it was in America, not Mexico. But yeah, realistically, I mean, you pretty much said it. I didn't watch the fight necessarily as a study. I didn't study any of the fights this weekend, if I'm honest. But yeah, his volume and his work rate against standard opponents is always going to be impressive. So his I can hear myself echoing. Is that for you?
No.
Okay. Yeah, that's okay. I can't hear it anymore. Yeah, so his main issue is gonna come when he faces someone that is a good counterpuncher. Someone that can find the shots and find those angles within the salvos that he throws. And as long as and if they've got any snap, then that's where he's going to have to either readjust his game, or we're going to see exactly what his heart and his grit are like. But I do like watching William Zepeda fight. He's the type of person that, you want on a card, is all action, has very good punch selection, good balance as well. He doesn't load up with every shot, hence why he's able to throw so many. But yeah, he's definitely one to watch, and he's the kind of guy that even if he loses his O, his value is still kind of there, because you don't ever have to worry about him turning in dud performances or not having a backing or a following behind him, because he's always going to be entertaining and putting on a good show for the public. So yeah, as I said in my initial ones, I mean, Masito Hester was just going to be his tune-up for whatever's supposed to be next. Could have been a better opponent, even though, Hester's good, but over the hill, he's there just to kind of be that tune-up. It was supposed to be Ryan Garcia's tune-up initially, ends up being, William Zepeda's tune-up, moving into whatever is next. But yeah, I just want to see him in a big fight next. The Jojo Diaz one was good, but I need levels above that moving forward, just to see what Williams really got. Having said that, he's still young, so it's not like he's in any huge rush. But being 25 with almost 30 fights, it is time to kind of start putting a pedal to the metal and get into that title contention, or taking out the other contenders. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it. You're still muted.
Yep, sorry about that. So we move on. No questions in there. Was he the guy in and out of range? Not quite sure what that means, untraceable. But we shall move on. So the next fight we shall deal with. It's interesting actually that Zepeda fight was in an arena that looked like a marquee in someone's back garden. It just seemed really small.
That's a Golden Boy special.
it just, and all the footage I seem to have got from that it just looked weird. But we're gonna go to Xander Zayas against Valenzuela. His name
is Ruben Valenzuela, right?
Ruben Valenzuela, is it? Okay. So Xander Zayas is a fighter who we're very high on here in the undefeated. We've seen a great deal of him. He's obviously a fan favorite. He's come through the ranks really well. So you would have heard us talk about him each time he's performed. He's very heavy-handed, and once again, he put pay to his opponent with very good aplomb. So here's a little bit of the detail of the junior middleweight bout between Xander Zayas. Now, in this fight, Zayas is on the front foot from the get-go, and effectively he bust the nose of Ruben Valenzuela quite badly. I'm not sure if it actually technically broke, but if it didn't break, he broke the skin extremely heavily, to the point that he actually had to be stopped because of, a combination of him just totally destroying Valenzuela, but also the fact that his face was a bloody mess and the nose was taking severe damage at the time. You may have seen a shot of Valenzuela on the floor. That was from the first round, where
Xander Zayas,
indeed, thank you very much, was able to drop Valenzuela, and he basically was on the front foot from the very first round. So as I said, he was extremely accurate with his shots. he's very much a sharpshooter. Reminds me a little bit, in fact, of Donald Curry. If you've ever seen Donald Curry, very wide stance in the feet, picks his shot very effectively. Doesn't overshoot his shots. Doesn't lean over his shots. Doesn't get caught, falling into his work. He fights at long to medium range, and he basically just decapitated Valenzuela with his work. And as I said, was able to break his man down with good combinations. Valenzuela, to his credit, was I think the referee was about to stop the fight at the end of the 4th round, and the corner said to him, "Look, we're going to let you go out there, but you have to let your hands go." And he came out, on fire, trying to, change the outcome of the fight, knowing that he couldn't go very much longer with the nose in the state that it was. But he came out on fire. But your boy Sander Zayas was just there to meet everything he had and just detonate back with crisp punches. And the referee, as I said, had to eventually step in and say, "You've had enough." Valenzuela protested. He felt that he wanted to continue, but the writing was on the wall. There was no way he was coming back in this fight. And as I said, a good stoppage, because he had received substantial damage to the nose.
Okay, now I didn't watch the fight, so you gave an excellent breakdown of that one. Thank you very much. Yeah, looking forward to see Xander and his next bout. We can move on.
Excellent.
Where do you want to take the next one?
Okay, there's a question that relates to the previous fight from Philip Answer, which is, would anybody be interested in Zepeda versus Frank Martin?
Yeah, I'd be interested in it. It would be a bit more technical to a degree, but it all depends on if Frank Martin has got enough power for Zepeda to respect. Because if he does, then he can limit the output from Zepeda with him having to worry about the attacks coming back. But Frank Martin, even though he's quite good counter punching, he's not a counter puncher as such. He's definitely a guy that's more on the front foot. So if he's meeting Zepeda front foot, that would be I think that would be a long night for him, because he's not going to be going through the angles. It's almost going to be you go, I go type situation. And we know that William Zepeda and most of those Mexicans, especially the ones from the high altitude parts of Mexico, they've just got gas tanks for days. And I don't think Frank Martin would be able to keep up. But it'd be interesting. I definitely would watch it.
Mm-hmm. So the next fight I have, I'm hoping that you can. One more question about Xander Zayas coming in from Philip. Could Xander Zayas potentially be a world champion? I 100% believe he can, and I'm pretty certain. Yeah. I'm very high on Xander. I truly, honestly believe we've got to watch him, very carefully, because I think he's likely to ascend to a world champion at some point in time. And he can
probably
go
at
through
160.
the weights. Yeah, he can go through the weights though as well. He can do 160, 168, even 175. He's big. So the next fight is a fight from the same bill as Zepeda Hesta. We saw Yocasta Valle versus Maria Michio Santizo.
Okay.
Now, did you see that one?
Yep, I watched this one.
I'm going to leave that one to you, sir. Here you go.
Okay, so Yocasta Valle, or Yoka Valle, as they call her, Maria Santizo. So this basically, Santizo was a opponent that Sanisa Estrada had previously fought. So it was almost basically, it's like a, can you do what you can do, I can do type situation. So it was a good exchange. It was like fairly back and forth. In the first sort of 3 rounds, Santizo had most of her best opportunities. She caught Yokasta Valle quite cold, especially in the first round. Really wobbled her back, as you saw a few frames ago before the still images. However, the one thing that I will say, even though Yokasta pretty much controlled it from sort of round 4 onwards, there was some moments towards the back. I think it was round 8 or 9 where Santizo did land some good work. She kind of managed to get herself back in. Sorry, Tony, mute your mic, please. Shit. She able to get in some pretty decent work. But when you look at the scorecards, it would tell you that it was a one-sided pasting, because there was 100 to 90 and then two scorecards that was 99 to 91. I implore anyone to watch that fight and tell me that Santizo didn't at least win 3 rounds in that fight, especially some of the earlier rounds. Like I said, Yokasta, she did win, but I had it closer. I had it 96-94 to Yokasta Valle, and it was definitely, I know sometimes you can have those really competitive fights where even though someone actually does win every single round, but every round is competitive. And yeah, I get that. This wasn't one of those fights. This was one of those, there was rounds where they were Santizo rounds, whether it was due to the impact of the shots, the accuracy, or even just landing more than Yokasta did in those particular rounds. And that's one thing when it comes to Golden Boy cards. If anyone has their scorecards like predetermined before the fight, like Golden Boy are one of the biggest culprits of that, compared to a lot of the other outfits. That's not to say it's every single fight, but anytime that they've got a strong A side, that strong A side usually has numerous rounds in the bank before the fight even starts. But hey, that's my personal opinion. Some people may think differently. I can see Philip Answers just said he had it 99-91 to Valle. I'd implore you to watch the fight again and see if you come with the same scorecard. If you do, then fair enough. But yeah, me personally, it was definitely a lot closer than those scorecards suggest, and that the scorecards definitely didn't tell the story of the fight. But hey, Tony, I'm assuming you didn't. This is one of the ones you didn't see, so we can move on to the next one. And since we're with the women, let's stick with. Let's see. I guess we'll go to this one first. All right, so Sabrina Perez and Sky Nicholson. Usually we don't talk about Sky on this show. However, in this fight, she actually did put on a decent performance. So I've got to give her some credit. She actually put punches together. She stayed closer to her target. She, had good. She made good combinations, especially towards the back end of the fight. I didn't see all of the first half, so I don't know how she was moving to start with, but she had every advantage over Sabrina. Height, length, reach, and obviously southpaw as well. She could have pressed the pace a bit more than she did, but I feel like towards the end she started. I felt like she was getting aggressive, but by getting aggressive, she wasn't being aggressive defensively either. So she was literally walking into backhands in some of the later rounds, whereas before everything was tidy and neat. But yeah, it was one of her best performances, her best one since I think her second performance for me. And if she carries on in that same vein, then I will be sort of more willing to watch her fights again moving forward. Everyone knows I kind of jumped off the Nicholson train. And also, I guess while we're here, we've got to give a RIP to Sabrina Perez's husband and trainer. What was his name? Something Maguro. Aguirre.
Is it Agula?
No, the surname was I think it's like Agua, but I can't remember his first name off the top of my head. Was it Diego? I think it might have been Diego. I think it's Diego Arua. That sounds about right in my head. either way, yeah, big. You saw big condolences to the family. Obviously, you see it in you see it on screen during the fight in the 10th round where he kills over in the top right hand corner, and it's yeah, it's not necessarily a nice thing to see, and it's just a good thing that the fighters were unaware of what took place in the last 30 seconds, because yeah, I'm sure that would have been even more traumatic for Sabrina at the time as to when the fight finished and what took place. But yeah, condolences to them, and obviously rest well to him, and I hope that she's able to come through this.
Yeah, it was
Any
Diego
words?
Arua. Yeah.
Yeah, I said it sounded right to me in my head. You got anything you want to say on that fight?
No, not one that I watched again. We've kind of turned off the Sky Nicholson show. I mean, when I was researching, and obviously I saw a little bit of footage, she seemed like she was boxing well. You know, she's got good fundamentals, but she just doesn't put her, you know, a foot in and kind of put anything behind her shot. So it tends to be a lot of very lightweight shots hitting, which score but don't move your opponent. But she did look, you know, fairly comfortable. I saw her opponent rushing her a couple of times, and she, you know, she would use a very good defensive maneuver and almost end up with her opponent in the ropes. But yeah, well done to Sky Nicholson. She now becomes the interim champion, so we'll see where she goes from here.
Okay. What's next for you?
You want to stick with the women? Talk
No, I
about the
want that
Erica.
fight to go a bit later in this.
Okay, so then we can go with a quick one that you didn't mention, but I kind of got a little bit of footage. A young up-and-comer from a fight family, Emilio Vargas, famous boxing family, the Vargases. He's an up-and-coming youngster. Was on an undercard. I can't remember which one. It might have been the Matchroom. But yeah, he put on a little bit of a show. I've got a little bit of the footage, so here it is. Vargas in
I hope
the
you're
red,
not
white,
asking
and
for me to
green.
talk. I didn't see this.
Yeah, so Vargas in the red, white, and green, putting together good punches in round two here. I think this is round three. Beautiful uppercut, nice combination of body and head. And eventually he gets a stoppage. So early days in the development of Emiliano Vargas, but you know, anytime I see youngsters who show promise, and obviously he's got that huge backing of you know, the famous Vargases, you know, sons of former world champions. You know, there's a lot of them out there. They come with different flavors, whether they be, you know, the likes of Conor Benn, who's, you know, established himself quite well, Chris Eubank Jr. I believe Emilio Vargas will be one to watch because he certainly is entertaining. So, moving on. Shall we do Fierro versus Zamaripa?
No, not yet. Let's see what else. I'm sure there's something else in here. What's this one?
When we get Johnny on the show.
Okay, that's different. Okay. All right. In that case, yeah, let's do Fierro. Let's do that one. Yeah, the Maripo.
Okay. So I'll let you get the details of that.
Yeah, so Angel Ferreira versus Ryan Zamaripa. So this fight was definitely all about pressure fighter versus pure boxer / boxer puncher. So Tony, you might mute your mic, please. Right. So when you see so you see their records, Zamaripa was 13-1 with 4 KOs, and Fierro was, I believe, 25-1-2. So, and he had, I think, 17 KOs to his name. No, you say it's 22-1-2, I think. So yeah, he was definitely touted as the puncher. He was there to get the highlight reel knockout, but they had sparred before, and Zamaripa was very confident going into this fight. And as him being southpaw, you could see that his fundamentals were intact from round one. He was pretty much, to me, dominating the entire first half of this fight, minus round number 2, I think it was. Like Fierro just couldn't get close to him. He kept trying to sort of cut the distance, but Zamaripa was just able to he was just able to ping that jab, just to snap that jab in his face, hit him with the backhand, then spin off angles and prevent Fierro from being able to sort of land. And every time he would even get him into the corner, Zamaripa was just very composed, just very able to, keep himself composed, compact, block the heavy shots to the body, and just sort of move off and move away. But as you do with pressure fighters, eventually they are able to grind you down. And with Zamaripa not having devastating punch power, Fierro, I think, felt like he could take some chances, and chances he did take, especially in the middle rounds, to sort of get in and to start working the body to stop the Zamaripa movement. I think Zamaripa caught him with a really, really tasty overhand left in, I think it was round 7 or round 8, which jolted Fierro's head back and made you think, oh, this could be the start of the end, because Fierro, you could see that his gas tank was starting to was on E at that point. He was running on fumes. But again, he stuck in there, stayed composed and stayed gritting his teeth and grinding it out until eventually he got to the 10th round, and he just said, let's go. And in that 10th round, he hit Zamaripa with, a devil of a right hand over the top, which he caught as he was stepping into the shot. And it's almost like it didn't fully connect, but it caught him on the chin, and it was between sort of the chin and just the bottom of the nose. And you had, and Zamaripa's legs did a big wobble. Surprising how we managed to stay on his feet and ride out the end of the round. But that round, to me, is ultimately, I think, what won Fierro the fight. I had it scored a draw myself. I had it 95-95, a 5 rounds apiece. But the scorecards was 96-94 both ways, and then 96-95 to Fierro. So he ended up winning a split decision. I personally don't think he's won enough rounds to win the fight, personally. But obviously the away fighter sometimes doesn't get the concession. But it wasn't it wasn't to me like, a terrible decision. I just thought it was a draw. So the fact it was a split, I can't really argue too much with it. But it was a good fight to watch. And ultimately, those Mexico cards, even though we never know half of the people that's on them, there's obviously a couple that you kind of get to know after a while, but we don't necessarily know who they are. And for the most part, they are always entertaining cards, and I will always stay up for the Mexico cards, just because I know it's going to be popcorn worthy. Tony, you can turn your mic back on. Did you see it? Any chance?
No, I saw none of that one. So
okay,
thank you for that.
So then let's move to Erica Cruz and Melissa Odessa. Have you seen this one?
No.
Okay, right. So mute your mic for me. Okay, so this is a fight I actually had a bit of a vested interest in, because Erica Cruz, I like, obviously, Erica Cruz, and I also I used to speak with Melissa Odessa on Twitter and Spaces and sort of other areas as well, until she sort of came off. So I knew her journey, and I knew some of the risks and some of the issues that she's had previously, in her boxing career. So I was rooting for her. However, I did predict that Erica Cruz would win the fight via decision. and I felt it would be a competitive fight, but ultimately it would be a case of Erica, you know, dominating with work rate, basically. And that's exactly how it happened. Melissa Odessa has the better boxing fundamentals. She's got a great left hand, so she's southpaw. They're both southpaws, so she's got a great left hand, but she was arcing it too much rather than shooting it straight down the line. Whenever she did shoot it down the line, she was getting to the target more times quicker than Erica Cruz was. But the activity, it's almost like she was trying to feint Erica onto shots, but whereas she's feinting Erica's like, okay, well, if you're feinting, I'm throwing. And we know Erica is all action, just like 3-4 punches in a row, and that's just how she fights. And when she's fighting that way, she keeps her head off center line, making it very difficult for you to be able to catch her and catch her on the end of shots. So you almost have to catch her before she lets the first shot go, so that she's not able to let the second, the third, and the fourth one. But I gave Erica the first 3 rounds, and I gave Melissa the 4th. I gave Erica the 5th and the 6th and the 7th. I gave Melissa the 8th. The 9th I couldn't really decide, but I feel like I ended up giving that one to Melissa as well. And then ultimately the 10th round, where they just both went all out war, I gave that one to Erica as well. So ultimately I had it sort of 97, 93. But yeah, I was rooting for Melissa, but she put in a performance that was worthy enough to get a call back for another show, and hopefully she can stop alternating between boxing and MMA, because obviously she had a period where she had to sort of move to MMA to make her money due to a situation that was occurring. But the same as like maybe Ebony Bridges or those kind of people, whereby they came in as the B-side and then they put on a really good show and then got given the opportunity again and then ultimately kind of got a contract out of it. I'm hoping that maybe something like that can happen for Melissa, if she can, she can put in some good work for some of the other either bantamweights or the super bantamweights. Because for some reason, I think this fight was contested at 130, even though it was for Erica Cruz to move down from 126 to 122. So I'm not sure if that was maybe a typo, or if I can't remember exactly what they weighed in at. But I know Erica will be campaigning at super bantamweight moving forward, and I hope that Melissa does go back down to bantamweight, because there's some good work for her down there if they can give her opportunity. But yeah, that's sort of my thoughts on that one. It was a good fight. It was not it wasn't dominated by Erica, but it was a very comfortable victory in my personal opinion. But it was one of those Mexico versus Puerto Rico situations, and those always turn out quite favorable. So yeah, big ups to both women. And yeah, moving on to the next one. So I guess this is the final bout. All right, so Tony, you can take this one over. Give us your thoughts on Luis Alberto Lopez, El Venado, and Joet Gonzalez.
Yes, indeed. So this was, to me, the fight of the weekend. I was very excited about this. Coming from Corpus Christi, Texas, the IBF featherweight title held by Luis Alberto Lopez, 28-2, fighting Joet Gonzalez, 26-3. Very similar records actually, 28-2, 26-3. 16 KOs for Luis Alberto Lopez to 15 KOs by Joet Gonzalez. People will recognize Luis Alberto Lopez from his wins against Josh Warrington and recently Michael Conlan. He's also and Joet Gonzalez has had some really good fights. He's been in with some real killers in his losses. His 3 losses have been to Shakur Stevenson, Emmanuel Navarrete, and Isaac Dogbe. So this on Mexican independence was a big fight. And this one for me is a very controversial fight. Reason is because to me, I don't believe the winner actually won the fight. But I've seen and heard various people in the boxing fraternity giving different opinions on how they saw this fight. The commentators were very, very favorable of Luis Alberto Lopez, especially in the early rounds, and this was in most people's eyes a dominant performance from Luis Alberto Lopez in the early 6 rounds, and then a dominant performance from Joet Gonzalez in the remaining 6 rounds of the world title. Got a bit of footage and some pictures to accompany me, so let me fire that up. There we go. It's that one. So the issue here for me is, what do people like when they watch a fighter? Now, Luis Alberto Lopez is a heavy-handed banger, and obviously, as I said, we've seen that in his fights against Warrington and Conlon. But effectively, his footwork is kind of atrocious. Should I say kind of? It's atrocious. It's not good. It's functional at best. But look at the way he's very upright when he throws his punches. It wasn't a great advert for boxing skill, but it was an advert for a guy who could throw good decent combinations from a fairly flat-footed stance. Interestingly, in the post-fight conference by Joet Gonzalez, he actually said this was one of his worst fights. But even in his worst fight, as he says, I still believe he did more than enough to warrant a slice of this fight that, in my eyes, he won this fight by 7 rounds to 5. Now, I had him winning rounds 2, 4, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 6. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, those are my rounds. As I said, the early rounds, the majority of those rounds went to Lopez, but there were still 2 rounds in the early 6 that I had Joet Gonzalez winning. Lopez, he throws very hard, unusual punches in some situations from his very flat stance. Whereas when Joet Gonzalez got going, he was picking off Alberto Lopez. And it got to the point where in the second half of the fight, especially, he had Luis Alberto Lopez on the ropes, and he was just teeing off on him. And what you could visibly see was Lopez was gassed. He couldn't fight 3 minutes of the round. But what he would try to do was he would come in with a last-minute spurt in the last 45 seconds, half a minute, especially when he hears the clappers. He would come out and he would bull rush Joet Gonzalez with a fusillade of punches, and Joet would just slip them. And it was clear that the game plan second half of the fight was, let's try and win it by winning the last minute of the round. And that to me don't work, because you just got battered from rope to rope in the first 2 minutes of the round, and you're expecting that you can win a round. So this was an interesting fight. I'll be interested to hear how you saw this one, Base. But me personally, I was more impressed by the work of Gonzalez in the couple of rounds he managed to win in the first half of the fight. And to me, as I said, he dominated the second half of the fight. Through the stretch to the end, he dominated, and in my eyes, done more than enough to be the victor.
Okay, so I didn't score this fight. To be honest, I watched it, but I didn't watch it in my usual way. This was one of those weekends. There's not much that I actually watched into with intense eyes and, picking apart round by round. Um, the fight played out on the scorecards the way that I predicted on basis picks, that Luis Alberto Lopez would get a majority of the early rounds through activity, whereas Joet Gonzalez is very, I won't say one pace because that sounds like it's a disrespect, but it's not. But it's like he's very consistent. He doesn't sort of up the levels. He doesn't drop the levels. He's just consistently at one note. And for me, I had it as a where he would basically be working diligently sort of the first half of the fight, and then sort of when you get to like rounds 8, 9, 10, and Lopez's energy starts to drop, and then his work rate reduces greatly. Gonzalez's work rate still stays the same, and that's where he starts to take over and pick up the fight. And then it's about if he can make any imprint on the judges in that first half to nick a couple rounds there in order to get it on the scorecards. But I did predict that after building up a quite healthy lead in the first part of the fight, Lopez would basically then be able to almost see it out towards the end and come away with a close points decision. Now, I think I said 115, 113, 116, 112, sort of that type of scenario. So the scorecard I saw, which was 116, 112, I didn't really have a big problem with. The scorecards that was 117, 111, and 118, 110, totally trash. And that's even with me not scoring the fight. I could clearly see that that Gonzalez had won more than 2 or 3 rounds in that fight. Um, Even with him not necessarily being, I guess, the A side fighter or whatever, but you would think, especially with Top Rank, considering that they're predominantly an American outfit. Uh, Luis Alberto Lopez doesn't speak English, whereas Joet Gonzalez speaks both English and Spanish. So it would make more sense for you to have your backing behind the guy that I guess you could market a bit more to both places. So you would think that he wouldn't be like just totally jobbed on the scorecards. But that being said, from what I've watched, I think that while Lopez was lucky, I do think he was the correct winner. I feel like he did enough just to kind of keep the belt. I don't think Joey did enough to necessarily take it from him, but I feel that Lopez has got to do a little bit better moving forward. That being said, though, he has been fairly active, so we can't really cuss too much. I think he fought October last year against Josh Warrington. Then he fought in May, and now obviously in September. So if he manages to get one more fight in this year, which is a possibility, 'cause I don't think he's on huge money. That would be a good bout of activity for him, and it may keep him sort of the momentum on his side. So, yeah, it wasn't it. Commiserations to Joet. I feel like maybe the fourth time will be the charm for him. He might get a bit of an easier time trying to win a belt on his fourth occasion. But yeah, I feel like Lopez did just enough based on what I saw, but it definitely wasn't one of his better performances.
Cool. Yeah. So those judging decisions 117 11 117 111 and 118 110 were absolutely disgusting in my eyes. Interestingly, in the chat we have a difference of opinion as well. All Things Courage says I had Gonzalez winning slightly, and Philip Answer said my scorecard was 116 112 for Lopez. So it's one of them fights where there were some swing rounds, and I guess it boils down to what you like by way of the type of fighter that you like. I think there was enough to be able to say it could have gone either way. But yeah, good entertaining fight. If you haven't seen it, definitely worth a watch. I think the whole fight is available on YouTube.
Yeah, that's where I
So
watched it, because it didn't record on my box Friday, so I had to wait for it to upload. But
yeah,
Well, okay, look, ladies and gentlemen, it was a quiet weekend in terms of the big talking points. So we are gonna close this one off on time, which we don't often do. Thanks everyone for watching. Next week there will be a guest on. We'll expose that, or we'll talk about that on either Monday Night Smoke next Monday, or watch my channel and I'll let you in. There may actually be a guest every week for the next month. There's 3 that are lined up. It's just about making sure they all can make it on the times and the dates when we state. But yeah, look out for that. Tony, give them your socials.
yeah. So people, Pugilistboy, that's me. Available on Twitter and YouTube. On Instagram, it is Pugilistic Boy. My Twitter, my Instagram is slightly different. Pugilistic Boy.
Lovely. And as you guys know, I'm BaseDaKID, the hardcore casual. You can find me on my YouTube channel. There may be some content tomorrow. I might actually do a video tonight to upload in the morning. I will be at some of the media events this week for Jean Joyce 2. I will be at the press conference, and I will be at the there's a media day tomorrow as well. So I'm aiming to get content for both channels, for both Undefeated and myself, different aspects from both days. So hopefully you guys can tune into that. Follow me on X. I'm just you can type in BaseDaKID as it shows on the screen, and I pop up number 1, or you can type B_A_S_E. And yes, Instagram, yeah, I'm BaseDaKID on there as well, but don't go on there if you're looking for boxing content, because I very rarely post boxing things on there unless it's in my story. So yeah, if you want the boxing, go to the YouTube channel, go to the X. I don't know, maybe TikTok might come out in the near future. I know October Red's been cussing me telling me hurry up and get on there, but nothing before it's time, as she says. Right.
I have
Ladies and gentlemen.
just one quickie. So, guys, I will be at the Zhang versus Joyce fight. So I know when I go boxing, I normally run into some of you guys. Please, if you see me, do come up and say hello. I love meeting you guys at shows. I think it's amazing that we can actually put names to faces. So yeah, look forward to that fight this weekend.
All right, so that's it from us and the Undefeated lot for today. Thank you lot very much for watching, and yeah, we'll catch you next week. Peace.